Welcome to New Writer Podcast, episode 18. This is the weekly update for April 18th, 2015. I am your host, Matt Brotherton, author of the Seven Keys Saga and other works of speculative fiction. You can find all of my fiction at mabrotherton.com as well as my blog. So this has been a crazy week for me. What I do in my day job gets really busy this time of year, so fortunately, that is over as of this week, so I can get back into maybe calming down and focusing on getting more fiction done. I'm actually pretty proud of what I've managed to accomplish this week in my writing. I finished what I call my vomit draft for Seven Keys 5. It is currently sitting at 32,000 words that are non-linear and incoherent. And of those 30,000 words or 35,000 words, I will probably actually end up only using about 10. But the second draft, the new draft that I'm starting today, as soon as I finish this podcast, will be much cleaner and ready to just go to the editor. The story is all there. Everything I needed to know about the characters and explore is there. I really do wish I was more efficient as a writer. I want to learn more about structuring beforehand and trying to eliminate my vomit draft, but it hasn't worked for me so far. But I keep reading a lot of really good books on that craft and doing exercises to try to build myself more in that direction. And to that point, I actually read Find the Magic by Alicia Dean this week and did some of the exercises in that book and have applied them actually to the new draft of Seven Keys 5. So I will tell you guys how that goes. I'm hoping to have this draft done before next weekend's update. I want this draft to go to the editor before next Saturday. When I get down to it, I start looking at what I have accomplished so far this year, and I'm not happy with what I've done fiction writing wise. I have been doing a lot of writing for work. So, like, my actual word count for the year is pretty high, but it's not me creating, and that's not okay for me as far as my emotional journey goes. But when I look at it, I actually wrote Seven Keys 4 in October of last year. It went to the editor. I rewrote the ending right before it came out in January. And in that time between those two, I wrote 60,000 words for NaNoWriMo, and I've written some short stories and some other stuff for my writers group, the Queen City Creatives, but I haven't done a lot in the way of publishable work this year. I did get It Happened in Georgia out, which I really enjoyed writing. It's a prequel short story for the Seven Keys saga. And I think going forward, I'm going to try to just focus on structuring myself as a writer better and getting my crap together so that I can do the production I want. I have a really long list of things to write, and I need to start focusing on getting that stuff done, and focusing on making myself a more efficient writer, which is why I liked Find the Magic by Alicia Dean. I've read quite a few books on outlining and structuring, and I think every time I read one of these books, I get a little bit closer to making that step into being an efficient, productive planning writer. So just this year alone, I've read Write Better, Faster by Monica Leonelle and Take Off Your Pants and Write by Libby Hawker, and now I've read Find the Magic. I will probably read a lot more outlining and plotting books this year because I feel like every single one of them moves me incrementally closer to being a more efficient writer. The other book that I read this week that I think everyone who listens to this podcast should probably read, I can't say it was the greatest book ever written or anything like that, but it's one that I think this podcast specifically, the audience that is listening to my journey, might benefit from, and it's called Writer's Doubt by Brian Hutchinson. And what Brian writes about is the emotional aspect of writer's block, really, but he doesn't like to look at it that way. Now, Brian is a reality writer. He writes memoirs and autobiographical things about his life and his experiences and the things that have happened to him. And Writer's Doubt is kind of a nonfiction book on how writing helped him overcome a lot of that stuff and how he was able to move forward in his life because of writing, the therapeutic nature of writing, and how when he realized that's what some of it was and that not everything he writes has to be publishable, he was able to start becoming more prolific and overcoming the blocks. And it's an emotional book. It's not really about how to structure or write lots of words an hour or any of those other things that a lot of us focus on as writers. It's a book about the emotional journey of the therapeutic nature of the art of writing. And it's really an encouragement book for writers who are struggling. So I think if you are listening to this podcast, which I have kind of branded as the emotional journey of one, semi-decent writer, I'm not even gonna give myself that much credit. But if you're listening to this podcast as someone who is looking for the encouragement that I'm trying to offer to everyone, I suggest picking up Writer's Doubt by Brian Hutchinson. The other book that I picked up this week that I have not finished yet, but I'm pretty close, about 80% of the way through, is He Sat, She Stood by Ginger Hansen. This is a book that has popped up in my Amazon suggested reads for a long time, and I find that one of the things I'm struggle at is that dialogue attribution stuff. The beats in between the words. Like I feel like I have a fairly decent grasp of how my characters speak, but I tend to get into that he said, she said, he said, she said crap. So I wanted to pick up He Sat, She Stood and really focus on that specific aspect of the writing craft is that those little motions and actions that take a conversation from being a script to being a scene where people are engaging one another. And I would say it is a really good book for that. A lot of the stuff that Ginger goes into is the psychology of movement and kinesthesis. I can't say the word. The scientific study of human body language. Kinethesis. I'm giving up on it now. Anyway, it just goes into why people move the way they do. She talks a lot about play settings and what in the theater industry is called work, which is the stuff you do on stage to make you not just be a dude standing there. It's what makes a character more human and alive is when they interact with the environment, and props and things like that really just flesh out a scene. She focuses on how to work that into your dialogue. And of course, by focusing on how to work that into your dialogue, it helps work that into everything else also. So I definitely recommend He Sat, She Stood by Ginger Hansen. I'm only about 80% of the way through it. I will probably finish it today. But that's where I'm at. So we are coming up on the 10-minute mark. So I think I'm going to go ahead and dive into some, I don't know, just me talking at this point, really. Honestly, if you are still listening to this podcast, you know that I'm a rambler and I don't plan well. In fact, that, like everything I just said, was my entire list of stuff to talk about this week and was supposed to take 20 minutes and took 10, well, less than 10 actually. So here's the thing, guys, is, I have been struggling this year with productivity and staying on top of the goals I want to achieve in life. And I think a lot of us get into that phase. I think there is probably, and I have no research on this, but I would guess just off the top of my head that if someone did a poll of people who pursue writing as a career, you would find an unusually high percentage of those people suffer from depression or a related emotional illness. And I'm definitely one of them. In the past, writing has been therapeutic for me personally in helping me overcome my own anxiety and fear and doubt. And when I don't write enough, I start to get worse. And that's, it's a self-destructive cycle, because the worse I get, the harder it is for me to motivate myself to get back to work. The longer I go without writing, the worse I get. So it's a very strong down cycle. And I actually have been writing about my struggle with depression on my blog for years. I call it the emo cycle. It's where something triggers you into a downward spiral, and then everything else just builds on top of that. And it's hard to break that cycle. One of the things I have learned to do over the years, one of my personal coping mechanisms, has been writing. And when I can't get to that level, when I get depressed enough to stop myself from writing, I get into a really dark funk. And one of the things I've learned to help me boost from dark funk back to the level where I can get myself writing, to push myself back up to that high level of no longer being crushed by depression, is to talk about it. And that's what I'm doing now, is I'm just getting that out there for you guys. I'm not a therapist. I don't see a therapist. I don't, deal well with other people telling me how my emotions should be, mostly because my emotions don't make a lot of sense for me. But I feel like just sharing that, like, it's okay to take a break from things and sort stuff out and figure out your own coping mechanisms and get yourself going again. But you do have to get yourself going again. You can't achieve anything by doing nothing. And that's all I want to say about that. One other thing is, it is National Poetry Month, which is great because it tied in perfectly well timed with my reading of Michael Laron's Indie Poet Rockstar, which encouraged me to take some experimentation and do some poetry. And I can do that under the guise of paying homage to actual poets with talent and skill. So what I've been doing is, on my blog at mabrotherton.com, I've been looking at poetry and different types of poetry and just trying my hand at writing some. I'm not a particularly gifted poet. There are some things that are very easy for me to do on the technical side of poetry. Like, for example, I find writing a haiku on the technical level of 575 to be extremely easy for me. I have a fairly robust vocabulary, so just counting syllables and putting them together is a skill I possess. But I don't necessarily think that I write good haiku. I just write technically they're haiku. But it's been a lot of fun just exploring a lot of the different types of poetry across the world. That's an ongoing process. I will keep doing that through the rest of April, just because I'm enjoying learning about poetry again for the first time since high school, and not having someone tell me, no, don't study Welsh poetry. No one reads it. No one cares. It's artistically impossible or whatever. And I've just been having fun with it. Like, yesterday, I have Dragon Dictate software that I use sometimes to do blog posting. I find that it's very difficult for me to write fiction with it, but it works well for blog posts. And yesterday I just put on some noise canceling headphones with really, really loud music, so I couldn't even hear myself talk, and just spouted gibberish into my microphone and let the Dragon Dictate software decide randomly what those words were. That gave me a giant chunk of just words that I then tried to turn into a poem. And I don't think it's a very good poem, but it was a lot of fun to do that. I'm having a lot of fun. Like, I wrote a Klingon poem this month. So, if you would like to check that out, you can go over to mabrotherton.com. It's on the blog. There's a big button that says blog right in the bottom corner of the screen. So you just click on that and it'll take you to it. That's all I've been putting up there this month, is just poetry. And I've been having a lot of fun with that. Another experiment I've been doing with my writing this month is April is also International Fake Journal Month. So I created a journal for one of the characters for the Seven Keys saga, a medium level character. He doesn't really play a lot into the plot of the main series. He's not a major character. He's not a minor character either. He's kind of in between. And I created his own little, live journal on Wattpad. And I've been having a little bit of fun with that. It's actually harder than I thought it was gonna be. Mostly because my original plan was just to go into my old live journal from when I was 17 and steal a bunch of crap from myself and be like, now let's put this in a world that has ghosts in it. But it turns out that like, Episcopal, that's the right word? I don't think I'm using that word correct. I don't think I have the right word. Anyway, letter writing, blog writing, journal writing, fiction is kind of hard because I have this like, the point of Fake Journal Writing Month is not to tell a story through a journal. It's not to write one of those books like The Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of those. If you've ever read the book and not just seen the movie. But the idea of those stories is that you tell an overarching narrative. But that's not necessarily the point of International Fake Journal Month. The point of International Fake Journal Month is to make up a person and create their journal. And do it just like you would do a blog or a live journal or, you know, that sort of thing. And so I've been trying that and it's twofold. One, it's fun because I just get to decide randomly like what Chad's going to write about today. And so like on April 15th, Chad wrote about paying taxes. Because he does have a job and there's a thing in universe where he is a member of a sovereign spiritual nation, but they're still American citizens. So they have to also follow American law. And so I wrote about tax law because it's a thing that would be up and it was April 15th. It was tax day, but there's no overarching storyline. And my natural writer instinct is going, you have to create an overarching storyline. And I'm trying very hard not to do that. And it's creating confusion in the story itself. Fortunately, the whole point of the exercise is not to create something that I'm like, here, this is the thing that you can buy from me, which is why I put it on Wattpad specifically, because I'm like, this is an experiment I am doing for this reason. I am focusing on this character because he is one of my favorite characters to write about in the series. And I feel like it would be fun for my readers to be able to get this little interaction. And because I've been doing that, trying to do that every day, as well as doing poetry every day, it's kind of distracted me from the emo spiral that I was in for the first quarter of 2015. And I think that's why I was able to finally, 6 months after I should have started, get really started on Seven Keys 5. And after a lot of false starts and broken ideas, get something coherent, at least full length for a Seven Keys book, and start working on the polishing draft for that. So I don't think it's too late. I mean, I know it's more than halfway through April, but if you are interested, you still have a couple of weeks. You can put together and do a fake journal and try just having some fun with some poetry. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be great. It just has to be fun and enjoy it. And that is my recommendation for you guys, is really to just enjoy your writing. And if you're working on a project that's important to you, but you're not enjoying it, you're never going to get done. So take a break and do some writing on something else. Create a character that you can just throw away or whatever, and create a fake journal, or just write some bad haiku. Whatever it is that you need to do to rekindle that joy, just do it. Have fun. Writing is fun. It's hard, but it's fun. Like playing football or sword fighting. One of those two I have experience in. Anyway, thank you guys for listening again. newwriterpodcast.com for comments, or find us on iTunes and leave me a review. I would really appreciate that. Share me with your friends. If you are interested in my fiction or Chad's blog or my horrible poetry, check out mabrotherton.com. That is brother, Ton. I mean, it's exactly how it sounds. So I will see you guys in a week. And I'm sorry I missed a week. I actually was writing and forgot that I was supposed to do this. So forgive me, please. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Have a nice weekend. Bye.